All right. Hello again, everybody. So, you're probably wondering, what in the fuck? It's been over a week since our last video. Well, unfortunately, I ended up having a family member pass away, actually at my dad's house right now. Um, so, kind of held off on doing a video. What I'm probably going to do is either release two videos this week or two videos next week. Kind of just depends on how things are going. I may even record the other one now and kind of just postpone on posting it for a little bit. But I wanted to continue going through everything from chronological beginning all the way to the end. And I decided that I'm going to do this song now instead of a little bit later because I talked about it before in some other videos. It's a very simple, easy song. It was originally supposed to be on my first album, but I decided to hold it because for some stupid reason, I just thought the song was so much better than it was. So, without further ado, we will do this song. It's called Someday. It's a very easy one, very common one that I did all the time, whether acoustic or with the band. So any people who remember my time, Blue Jay and the Robins, you guys definitely will remember this song.
Someday I'll make it out of this town. Someday I'm gonna get my feet off the ground. Someday my name's gonna be known around. Oh, someday I'm gonna quit fucking around. Someday I'm gonna be alright. Oh, someday I'll look back and say, well, that's the way it should have been. Someday all things are gonna get a little tight. Oh, someday now I won't be afraid to fight. But until that time, I know that it's a long road to success. And then I'll hold my head up above the rest. Until that time, you know I'll make it someday. You know I'll make it someday. Someday I know I'm gonna be just fine. Someday I'm gonna get things out of my mind. Oh, someday I'm gonna make that woman mine. Oh, someday I'm gonna get her to fall in line. But until that time, you know that it's a long road to success. And then I hold my head up above the rest. Oh, until that time, you know I'll make it someday. You know I'll make it someday. You know I'll make it someday, baby. One day, maybe soon. Oh, I do it just for you, just for you. I get there soon. I do it just for you. You know I'll make it someday.
Boom. So, that song. Let's go into a little bit of its history, right? So I wrote this probably a couple of months after I ended up writing Miss the Train Blues. So we're talking early No. We're talking about fall, summer 2010. Somewhere around that time period. I definitely had graduated, and I graduated high school. And I knew like music was definitely going to be the thing that I like wanted to focus out of school. We'll use "Miss the Train Blues" as kind of an example here. So "Miss the Train Blues," the reason why I thought that song was really good and inspired me to write some other similar songs was because it had a very simple kind of delivery. You know, it's just that boom, 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 and it had some lines that, you know, were personal in nature, but they kind of resonated out. They made a lot of sense. So it was a good combination of just very easy instrumentation, some lyrics that are generic enough that everyone can kind of get behind, and delivery that just kind of like, you know, kind of screamed like single material. Now we look at a song like "Someday," right? So I wrote this song probably even before I started doing practices with my blues trio, but I kind of just had that, you know, that idea of just someday, like someday I'm going to be where I want to be. Someday I'm going to be performing songs in front of thousands of people. Someday I'm going to be, you know, selling platinum level albums. You know, that young juvenile kind of spirit that you have where you're so invested in your passions. You kind of don't really see the reality yet. You're kind of almost blinded by it. So, I remember I wrote this song pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure I did it all in maybe about 5-10 minutes. There's really not much to write. This is one of the few times where I consistently use either a portion of a lyric or like a word itself as like repeated the entire time. In fact, actually, for this video series at least, this will probably be the only one. I have a couple of songs that are unfinished that I may save towards the end of things, but we'll see. So breaking it down, you know, I remember one day I was just like coming up with this chord progression, and me being so, you know, inexperienced as a guitar player, I didn't even know if that was just, you know, E, D, A. Just how I'm playing is a little bit different. You know, I'm making this E shape, but I'm playing it up here, which is basically a D sustain. If we had a capo here, we could basically do a C shape, and that would just make it a D. And then here, that's literally just an A with our finger on the 4th fret of A. So was that an A augmented, something like that? I'm like sleep deprived right now, so I'm not in the best to describe my music theory. But I was cycling through that progression a lot. And like I said, you know, that someday mentality was really going through. So I ended up combining them, put it together. I used that chord progression, and I just went someday. You know, I'm gonna be where I want to be. Someday I'm gonna, you know, it was a lot of just write down someday something, kind of, and then I was able to kind of get the lyrics to make a bit more cohesive sense. So it was like, someday I'm breaking out of this town. Someday I'm gonna get my feet off the ground. Someday my name's going to be known around. Someday I'm gonna quit fucking around. It's probably the only songs that I swear as well, which is hilarious because I swear all the time. Like literally every sentence in my normal day-to-day life when I'm not behind a microphone or recording, I have a swear. So it's funny that my music doesn't really reflect that personality trait. But, you know, you can't just kind of keep cycling through those chords. So ended up coming up with the chorus, you know, just G, A, G, A. Nothing crazy. It's just something to kind of break the flow. And I remember I came up with that like virtually like on the spot. I was like, this is what it was going to be. Until that time, you know, until that time, I know. Oh, shoot. See, and that's another thing with these old songs. I can't remember what the hell the lyrics are unless I'm actually doing it. Until that time, I know that it's a long road to success. Then I'll hold my head up above the rest. Until that time, you know I'll make it someday. Like legit, if I didn't have the guitar, like I couldn't remember what those lyrics are. Not anything crazy. You know, if we look at a progression of my songwriting, I still hadn't dialed in exactly how refined I could be, but the essence was kind of there. This is what happens when you take creativity and you kind of just let it out and you don't really shape it much. So to me, now as a musician with a lot more songs, a lot more experience, the song always has that kind of album filler, kind of deep cut vibe. It does actually work acoustically now that I'm a better performer, but I used to not be able to really give a good delivery in my vocals for this. There's a lot of examples of me playing the song acoustically. And when we were on radio, this is actually one of the songs that I ended up playing. And I can't believe I just realized that Tease to Please was also another one that we played on our radio performance. I'll probably do a small shorts video going over that. Maybe that'll be the second video I release this week. Just like a really long short, but still not worth the whole long video thing. Anyway, so, continuing with the trend. So this song should have been on my first album, and I ended up not doing it. I was really concerned about putting all my eggs in one basket and not really having a chance to shop this around. I was thinking in terms of shopping this to a label. I wasn't necessarily worried about album sales. I was more worried about album exposure, which in hindsight was definitely a bad idea. I could have revamped my album, and my first album could have been a lot better. It would have kind of been most of my hits at the time. Everything would have been A to B, A single or B single, like equivalent stuff. But I wanted to pace things out, and I just for a long time really thought Someday was one of those A-side songs. I don't really know why I held on to that for so long. And I had other musicians kind of be like, that's what you're sitting on. Granted, this was still early songwriting, early performances of me. So, you're always worried that like you're going to get caught off guard if, a talent scout or another band that, wants to use you as an opener, if they hear all of your material and then you have nothing to deliver next time, how far can your luck really get you? That's where that skill aspect comes in. And that's what I was worried about. But it wasn't part of my album. But this was definitely one that was played a lot. And I don't know how relevant it is today, but I am going to go on it because this is how I know that the song is still worth something. Irony, if only I would have named the song something. Reverb Nation was kind of a big thing when I was starting off with my music. And at the time, we didn't really know how scammy it was. I say we because I know a lot of musicians kind of fell into it. I personally never paid into it, but with one project I was working with, I did kind of contribute some of our overall income to it. But for my solo project, I never paid money. So I didn't really know that we were the odds were so stacked against us when I was posting our stuff. I did the press kit. I did all that stuff. All the things that you could do for free, I basically did. And I'll probably make a video on this as well at some point. Maybe after I finish covering all the songs that were on my album. And over time, we actually ended up getting to be in the top 5 in the nation for blues. And that was what I labeled us as because that's really what a lot of my early stuff kind of had that genre description for. Looking back now, I definitely think there were probably a better way to describe my genre, but for everything that I released in that time period, it's close enough. And we were top 5 in the nation for plays, which didn't make a lot of sense to me because when I think top 5, I'm thinking hundreds of thousands of plays, and we had maybe 80,000 total plays at that time. And keep in mind, we didn't spend any money. This was just getting actual plays from people. People actually ended up spending money to get fake plays, just like people today now, they're trying to get their YouTube channel up, they'll spend money and then bots will come in, they'll have 10,000 of them who are doing that shit. Didn't end up happening with any of this. Someday actually received enough attention that it ended up becoming one of our most played songs, which makes no sense to me because I don't think now it was one of my better songs, but it ended up happening. So analytic side, this was actually my most successful song in terms of plays and views. Eventually, when I released my album, that ended up, kind of eclipsing things just from an aggregate overall score. But at my initial run, when we were still very early in my band's life cycle, Someday ended up being one of the most heavily played songs. And like I said, played it all the time at our shows. This used to be our closer, and we used to jam on it. It was really easy too. I mean, just EDA. Like you can go on for days. And I used to. This was actually one of the first songs. And I will try to dig up old footage, if not an old recording that we did, because this song had 2 solos and the ending solo. That was the first time ever in my songwriting that I was like, I have to play this solo the exact same way every single time. I don't really do that much with songs, but 3 songs for sure I can name off the top of my head. I do that. This was the very first one. And even to this day, if I went and I performed this and I had a whole band and I was like, trying to, be a good guitarist, I would improvise the first solo and I would still do the exact same solo at the end. So yeah, like I said, appreciate you guys bearing with me for not releasing something over the last week. When a family member passes, it really kind of throws off your schedule. But whether I do a couple of shorts or do another long form video, something will definitely kind of come up and make up for it. On that note, like I said, I decided to take a break from covering songs that were on my album because this was a really critical component to that album, even if it wasn't on there. But we got a handful of songs left that we're going to knock out that cover my album. And then we'll probably do that album review video. And then we'll start going on to things that were supposed to go on to my second album and kind of continue the process from there. But thank you all for listening and getting through the whole thing. I'm trying to get these a little bit more prime time over time. But I appreciate the listens, the likes, the views, the comments, all that dumb shit. So until I see you guys again, take care.